I started years ago reading books, American books, from written by mediums about the afterlife, and somehow those books always disappointed me. I think the explanations that the mediums gave us regarding what happens on the afterlife were always very dumb. So I went to read documents about made by the militaries, the Soviets, the Americans during the Cold War. They did a lot of experimentation on that field. Also, after the Cold War, universities and private groups conducted very interesting studies and experimentations in America, in the UK, in France, in Italy, and those those books, those studies, and those articles, they were much more influential to me because they really did um, try to explain things in a more scientific and credible way. So I did read a lot during the process of writing and building the project. It is very hard to commercialize a film that is not, especially a horror film that is not in English language. We were working with private money, so the financing of the film is mostly private. So I was always very worried in making the money back to my financiers. Um, the people who financed the film were extremely supportive of the project. They treated me with incredible respect, and I respect them back. So from the very beginning, it was clear to me that if I wanted to make a film and be able to show it to a larger audience, I would have to work with British or American actors in English language. Um, I would love to work in Portuguese or in any other language. But for my first film, I wanted something that would have a better chance at international distribution. That was one of the reasons why I chose to work in English language. And also, if that was the decision, it would be very strange to have Portuguese actors speaking in English all the time. I've seen films where that happens, and I never liked the result. I think it's not credible. Um, from the beginning, we decided to include a large portion of our cast to be British and native English speaking. Today, it is incredibly difficult, much more and more difficult to distribute films that are not in English. Um, and independent horror films, or independent film in general, and specifically horror films, have a very difficult time trying to get distributed worldwide. The market is very tough these days, so we have to sometimes make these types of decisions and go for language that offers us the best chances. We did have mostly private. I would say 80% of it is all private. We had a small contribution from the Portuguese Film Fund, ICA. They have a fund for finishing films, for finalization of films that are already in post-production and need a little bit of money to finish the whole process. So they gave us a little bit of money. It was very useful. I'm very thankful to them. And then when we reached the sound post, we definitely ran out of money. We had more expenses than we were expecting. And then the idea was to do a Kickstarter. I knew we were going to need to do a crowdfunding campaign from the very beginning, because I knew that at some point we were going to run into some expenses that were not foreseen. And I had been preparing for that campaign from early beginning the project. I was preparing from the advent of the necessity of a crowdfunding campaign. So when we got the time to go for the campaign, I already had a lot of things that I had prepared for that. We already had videos, we already had a strong following on Twitter, we already had lots of contacts in blogs and Facebook groups. So the process of preparing the crowdfunding campaign was lengthy. It's a lot of work to do a crowdfunding campaign, a lot of work. There are lots of production companies in Portugal, but nobody wants to work in horror genre. It's a genre that the Portuguese cinema doesn't like. Our own film fund and the juries that select projects for financing, they don't like horror films. I think there is a prejudice against horror films. Maybe they think it's trash, maybe they think it's not artistic enough. But it's understandable. I understand why they think that. And most of those film funds, they look for art house films. That's not exactly what I'm offering. So it's always harder to come to them with a horror film. So very early on, I decided that if I'm not going to have that money, I'll have to make my own way. So I'll have to open my own company and try to raise myself the money. And that's what I did. It sounds like a cliche. If you work hard enough, if you don't stop, if you are resilient, you ended up getting, or someone will listen to you and help you.